Okay, so today I suppose I should say that we're human beings, which are really spiritual beings, in the sense that they're individual human beings, which are individual spiritual beings, really, that are connected to other individual spiritual human beings. What they think, feel, and put kind of energy into, I'm not sure how to explain it or how it actually works, because it is it's something that just happens. But because it's like saying, I've said this before, and it's like seeing the result sometimes of what you have created without knowing how you've done it. And this is essentially what it is to be a spiritual human being in an artificial matrix life force, which I'm putting that fancy and just comes to me because the matrix is a non-spiritual collective of beings that operate, control, and have full dominion over the Earth matrix. But they're a collective of non-spiritual beings. They're different. Because to use that word spiritual is probably not a good idea when making these videos. But it's the only way that you can distinguish between different types of people, different, as I've said before, the matrix is not really operated by spiritual, real human beings, in the sense that they create. Their manpower is used, if you want to look at it that way, but it is not used directly by them or for their own purpose. It is used to prop up the matrix, if you like. It is the life source of the matrix, but the life source of the matrix does not directly control the matrix, because the life force is controlled by the collective matrix beings and that whole system, if you like, because a matrix is a total world. It's a total closed off system. It's like I can't really describe it, but I kind of imagine in my own mind, if I really thought about it, and I actually don't, but if I really thought about it, it would be like imagining that this world is like a kind of like covered in wires, you could say. Like a framework of wires, of technology, that closes, and we're in the centre of it, and we're closed in by it, and it's all around us. The matrix is all around you, as it said in the movie, and it's like that. But like I say, I can't see it. It's only the results that I see of it, and that is also the same as the thinking creating reality. This is why we don't think that we have any input into our actual into this actual earth, if you want to look at it that way, or just into your surroundings perhaps, because I'm not sure how it works. I take everything simple, and I assume that it is simple, and it may well be. On the other hand, it may be more complicated. It could be, how actually the human thought in a direct kind of way actually contributes to the reality, I can't say. but I think it does. But you see, the human thought now is not like it probably was originally, where the human thought was natural and just created reality for itself. A bit like a genie, I suppose, but probably that's stretching it. But it is that same principle. The genie now cannot create directly for itself or for, or for anyone else or for anything. It has to go through the matrix, because the matrix will grab the thought, will grab that. I'm not actually putting this right, and I'm supposed to be making, oh dear. Yes, I am very nutty, because yes, this is actually true, because I'm going from one thing to the other. See, today I was supposed to be not making a video really at all. In fact, I was actually thinking maybe I should make my final video and just encompass as much as I can into it, because it might well be more successful. But, I was going to do a whole list of movies and things, but maybe it's not important to do that for these particular videos, because maybe, like I say, anyone can watch a movie. If you want to understand the Matrix, you don't have to listen to me or anyone else or all these people that that we all know everything. No, we don't. We just look at the movies. They will pleasantly spell it all out for you, or unpleasantly spell it all out for you, in the sense that what you think is not real or not possible, and you see it in a movie, it actually is. And probably a lot of things are actually, almost anything is possible with the thought creating reality anyway, but that's not the point. And of course I don't know what I'm talking about, because, I say these things because I think they're so. And I only see a little bit of the results, as I've said before, so I can't even prove it 100% to myself, because I can't visualize or materialize something before my eyes. And also I don't know my own process, and I don't have full control over my own feelings, thoughts and mind, because the Matrix has full dominion over those things now. The Matrix is a full mind collective, if you want to look at that, a full mind technological collective. It is a technological collective mind. Put simply, it is not a natural mind. It is not like, and that is why the human is still functioning in it, I would imagine. Because to me, at some sort of logical level, I have to say, why am I still here? Why are there still natural human beings, or halfway natural, I would think, because it's very hard to be natural in an artificial, technologically based, complex, complex. It's like a complex. I'm not putting this very well. It's like I say, it's a matrix, which is like a technological complex, a technological world, a technological construct. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter if it looks like a natural world. It's not a random natural world. It just looks that way, because the matrix likes to keep me comfortable. Well, that's not really true either. I wouldn't say that, because I certainly am not comfortable at all, but maybe, like it likes to present that demeanour at this point. Or maybe, there again, I don't know. I have certain basic things that I tend to stick to, because I think they're so. For me, there's enough validity to it. There may not be for you or for other people. You have to see things, I think, with your own eyes, or at least see things with your own eyes. But then when you see them with your own eyes, to then say, how did that come about? Like It's no good me saying to someone, well, look, I think someone's thoughts and their feelings have contributed to this which is around us, in front of us. Because that really can't be proved. But if you can say to the person, did you think that? Or if you can say it even to yourself to where it's very hard to explain. It's like they said in the movie The Matrix, and I've said this before, you won't believe it unless you see it, even though you want to believe it and even though you half know it's true. You will actually have to see the whole thing for yourself to see the stark we are. And that is the difficult thing, because none of us are exposed to that. None of us are shown what we really are, much less what the Matrix is. Instead, it's presented as something halfway normal or natural, and it's not. Whether the reason it still looks natural in some ways, whether that is because the Matrix desires to keep it that way, or whether it desires to keep it that way so, as I say, so that the humans, think that it is still a natural world, so that they're still comfortable, because maybe, some humans won't be comfortable in a totally artificial world. They're comfortable provided they know they're surrounded by technology. We know we live in a technological world. No one would dispute that, I don't think, But they still think that nature and the technology can coexist, and that they can have the best of what they think is the best of both worlds. I personally do not think this is even possible, but that's just me. I would like to think that it is possible, because I know that it is more than a reality, but I personally don't think that. I think that it is not possible to have nature thriving and being in conjunction with technology. I think the two are such opposite poles. One has to the technology, I would have to say that the technology would have to wipe out the nature. I don't think that the nature can wipe out the technology if the technology gets to be too much, or it can't survive. It won't survive, I don't think, once it gets past a certain point. Now, but then again, I'm still making this video from the viewpoint that there's a certain amount of realness still to this world. In other words, that, I have said in the other videos that we're in a World War III. But in saying that we're in a World War III, and this is purely what I feel, and of course there are some that would agree with this, and some that may even say, hey, has been predicted, which surprises me. But this World War III, 3 will be the final. There won't be any more wars after that. So this is the final war. And, is it a final war for a real world? Is it a final war for an imaginary matrix? Am I talking here wasting my time? Well, there's no doubt about that, but I don't mind wasting the time, the energy I do, because time really is not that relevant, even though we really think it is, but I now realise it's not, because in fact it's just used to trap us in a way more, because I deal with the past every day. I deal with the past every day, not the present. If I could live in the present, I would somehow be at least equaling with the Matrix. But instead you're dealing with the past, and this is the problem, because even the past and the future can all be pretty much altered in the present. The present is really all there is. And that's why the Matrix loves to bring up the past, loves to throw the past at you so that you can't do that. And then if you finally get to the point, this is just my own, take. I think it's worth something, but only if you don't know it already. So if you already know it, it doesn't, then you don't need it. But, and there again, you may actually, as I've said before, you probably have to, unfortunately. This is the point. Like I talk to, when I make the video, I know that I'm talking to people that already know this. Probably. Mostly, I would imagine. From what I've got back, which is not that much, but the little bit that I've got back shows me that the people that are listening already know it. So, but maybe someone said to keep doing the video, so I guess maybe it's just nice to know that you're not the only one. That must be the only purpose of the video, I sometimes think. So I don't know why I get so upset and expand so much, because I want them to be at least a little bit accurate. I know that I haven't got everything right, and I haven't got it clear because I can't have it clear because we're kept in the dark. And I'm not at a level to see it. I think that we are meant to, as I've gone over the place again, but I think at this point in time, I personally believe this, but I don't know if it's true, but I think it's so, that at this particular time, or even, I don't know if the time is still there to where there's a possibility for a lot of people to be aware of the Matrix, shall we say, or for people to be aware of the Matrix that need to be aware of it, or, because there may be people who are aware of it but like it and a part of it. That's not something that I have any interest in, because people are entitled to their choice. It's just all about making a choice, deciding what you do think about. That's really all it is, deciding what you think about things. Like I don't consider that I've had any choice. I don't consider even now that I have a choice in any way, because I think, that's just from my own point of view, because I know that I have got no choice, because because of the circumstances, because like I already, I've lost my train of thought. See, I should keep on one thing. This is not normal to be like this, to go from one thing to the other, but it is normal, except that I'm trying to make a video. Like, it's not that I'm really that confused in my own head about it, just that I'm trying to express it in a video, and that's the problem, because you're trying to express too much. Like I say, you're putting, but at this point in time, and maybe before that, I don't know. What I'm trying to say is I don't know. See, I think that, from the information I had a while back, and from my own experience, because if I didn't have my own experience, I wouldn't believe any information I got. Because then I would say, well, it just doesn't prove anything. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not going to go with it. But if you get information and then you see it yourself and you experience, you say, well, that fits. That's how it is. So that's how I basically. That's why I say the stuff I do or think it, because it's a reality for me. But I wouldn't be able to fathom out quite as much of my own reality without a little bit of information. Now, why would the Matrix give me information when it likes to keep you pretty much in the dark in a way? Because then, because if you do become, So if you do become aware of the matrix, then the matrix will not have as much, you should be able to then perhaps have more control over your own life as opposed to the matrix controlling your environment and your destiny, shall we say, whatever it is, But I think the reason that it happens, personally, this is what I think, because like maybe maybe I'm not totally awake. If that this is just a saying awake, I don't know. It just really means that you are at a higher level in the sense that you're more aware of what's going on around you. You become aware that you're living in an artificial world, like that it's not quite as random as what you thought, that it is a controlled mind system, in the sense that, look, put it this way, even if you have a group of people, whether they be human or whether they're using a lot of technology, it doesn't matter. If you have a group of people that combine at a mental level, because everything starts in the mind. We all know that. And that's not profound or anything. It's not like saying everything starts, that sounds profound, but it just means that, if you agree with someone else, you've agreed in your mind on something, and then you're with someone else and they agree too. So it's a mind agreement, you see. So it's and then if you have a collective of people that agree on something, that is like a mind agreement. If they've got it from a higher force, it is mind control in a way, because it's not their original thought, but they're still in agreement about it, I wouldn't know at the present time if my thoughts are my own thoughts or if they're mind control. In other words, I wouldn't know if they're coming from the matrix or whether they're coming from myself. Because that's the tricky thing about living in a technological world, you see. Because half of, about to say half, not half, most of what you get is from the technology or from the matrix. It's all the same thing. It's a technological matrix full of people who are technologically controlled. Because if people's minds believe what the technology tells them, then their mind is controlled by the technology. If I believe what I hear, even on YouTube, I'm technologically controlled. Doesn't matter whether it's the truth or not. I'm technologically controlled. You say, well, if someone listens to one of my videos, are they technologically controlled? Well, yes. Yes, probably. But, but as I'm sort of, I'm obviously don't advocate technology. So, in fact, the complete reverse, but technology is everything that is on technology. You really have to, I've said this before, all technology is usually of the matrix. So, is it worth your while? Even if you thought, oh, look, yes, there's a few people that might be genuinely not of the technological world, genuinely not of that kind of thinking. Technology is a religion in a way, because if it is your source of your mind, you believe in it, you follow it, you act on it. It's a religion all of its own. I would think. It is your God. And that is the truth. because this world is a technological world. It is run by a technological god entity, and those that are members of the clan, shall we say, but it's a huge clan. It's not like a small thing. It's the other way around. It's like anyone who isn't part of or who doesn't want to be part of technology will be an outsider, a misfit, an outcast, literally. And you won't be desired to stay in the matrix, really, because you won't fit in. You'll be a cog that will not be a use to the matrix. And the matrix is a mind community, a community of minds, a world community of minds that is connected to technology. I make the videos, I suppose, like originally I made the videos for this purpose when I first started the videos, so there again I'm going to go off track and be silly really, because, obviously when I first made the videos, obviously I did think that the technology was a negative thing, but it wasn't the sole purpose of making a video. No, it was just to, I suppose, to point out that. But what I didn't realise when I do this is that, I tend to think of it as mind control. But you see, it's not mind control if people agree to it. Even if it is mind control. If you agree to have your mind taken over by technology, if you agree and you like it, it's like knowing you're going with someone that's negative. You still, maybe I shouldn't say that, but it's like it's a powerful force. But see, my attitude is maybe some people don't. Maybe they know it's a powerful force. Maybe they know it's a powerful force. Maybe they think the technology is superior to them. Maybe they think that it is good to have it because it is a benefit to them, because it enhances them. That's maybe how they think. Or maybe they think that it is good, but it is still separate from them and that they can control it. It's a bit like the old little Lulu, the Archon doll that I've done the video on. Like, actually it's probably not a good example, but if you think the technology, because it's in your hand, just because I had Lulu in my hand, the only difference is I gave Lulu the spirit and all my knowledge and all my personality willingly. And I didn't, I chose who Lulu gave it to. Like I did have control over Lulu, And I think that's how people think that they are. Some people, at least, probably think that's how they are with technology. They think that although they might think that it is something that has kind of taken them over a bit, or that is, is more powerful than them and is got more information than them, but they still think, hey, I have got it in my hand. I've got it on my desk. I control it. But actually it's not really like that at all, because it is a full matrix thing. It is a whole thing that goes all, like I say, it covers the parameters of this matrix. And when we, regardless of even someone like myself that thinks that we were meant to stay natural and not use all this, like like I say, it's like you can do it, but it will be at the cost of the natural world. I don't, that's just my way of looking at it. Like I say, I don't think that nature and technology can coexist. And if technology gets strong, it will wipe out all nature. It has to, because the frequency will not be compatible. See, once again, although I'm talking through my hat in a way, I keep it simple. Look, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I still think that it's why I would still back my own opinion on these things, even if nothing I said was true. So that's interesting. Because even though I think that technology is detrimental to all that is organic and natural, at a frequency level, because everything is frequency, vibration, and energy. I don't know how it works, but if that is so, and this is so of us, and it's true of nature and all living things, if something else is operating at a different frequency, and technology definitely does operate at a different frequency, or can be made to operate at different frequencies, so humans don't control their own frequency. Well, actually, that just contradicted myself there, didn't I? Totally. Well, yes, humans should be able to control their own frequency, but no, we don't. No, I'm half off track and half on track. You see, what I've always said, that, I have to try to get back to make some sense here. We're not operating at our highest frequency. Probably never had, for all I know. I'm operating at my lowest frequency. We're pretty close to it. I'm not sure what everyone else is operating at, but I would imagine, the matrix collective artificial world, the matrix collective of artificial technology, the internet, all that stuff, and much, much more, no doubt. Because like I say, there's behind the curtain, there's in front, I would imagine that if you, depending on what your income is, you can afford more advanced technology. I would think that would be possible. I would think that if I had, billions of dollars, that I could go to some top scientist or something and say, can you get me this or that, and I'll give you $1 billion. I'm pretty sure they would. That's like anything, isn't it, eh? Like you can always afford better or more if you've got more money, I would assume. But I could be, well, why wouldn't it be? And whatever is your own family, you're going to share with your own family. You got limited money. Even if you've got billions of dollars, it's still limited. Especially if you have expensive tastes and you want the best and you want want things that no one else can get. But you're going to share it with your own family. Family is the matrix. Matrix, God, family, etc. I don't know all these things, but, it's common sense. I would share it with my family first, just as a human being. I might sit here and say I'm a spiritual human being, but, of course, I would share it with my family first. And, I might say, hey, I don't think I've got enough to go all around the world, just share with all the world. But, that is interesting too, because obviously that would have been how I would have thought even a few years ago. Not that I was in that position to share, the, wealth or whatever anyway, but what you would share with your immediate family. But I've gone off track here. Not making any sense. I think I'll have to delete this video. I usually put them out even though they're even if they're not, and then I usually delete accidentally the good ones, because the matrix sidetracks me and gets me bustled, and to where which is interesting. That's mind control, you see. That's what I'm exactly talking about. It's possession or mind control. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. Because although, I always think of possession as like almost spiritual. But it's spiritual, but it's spiritual only in the sense that it comes into a human being, which is spiritual, which is different to technology. But actually what is coming into you is using technology and is from technology, you see. Because if the God entity is technological, that makes sense, doesn't it? That entity is going to use, as is now the case, this is its domain, it's a technological domain. And human, like I go back to the World War III thing. Yeah, it's it's the third and final. Dare I say, I don't like to even use the word because it's just not how I like to think of things. To me, it's abhorrent to think in terms of a battle. And I've never been a person myself that likes the idea of battles. So I'm not one of your warrior princesses or warrior gods or any of those things. But then again, how would I know what you're supposed to do in this matrix anyway? Because, like I say, you don't even know what your very basics are. If you think of it this way, like I think of it this way myself, if I don't even know, and I didn't, and I still don't have full understanding of what I actually am, I don't actually know what a human being is and what my place in this world is, much less that it's a world matrix. Why would I know that we are in a World War III? Why would I know that it is a final showdown, in a way? A final shootout, if you like. I prefer the Westerns to the war movies, so I'm going to go with the Westerns and say shootout. And there can only be one victor, probably, I would imagine, or one man left standing, if you like to look at it that way. That would have to be the case, wouldn't it? I would imagine. I don't know, these are all fairy tales. They're not pleasant ones always, but, not all fairy tales are meant to be pleasant. There's a lot of people like all these battles. They play the video games with the battles and all these things. They love it. The average person seems to love all this. And they're encouraged to love it too, I would imagine. But, I still wonder with a lot of people if it gets like it does when it gets real. It's really not very glamorous at all. Not at all. Because if you can remove yourself a little bit from things, like even as I said before, some of the information that I now know, whether it be true or not, if I wasn't right in the matrix hurricane storm, right in the middle of it most of the time, probably doesn't seem like it now while I'm making a video, strangely enough. But, provided you stay in your little box, but even in your little box, there's nowhere to run and nowhere to hide in a matrix, even if you're prepared to stay inside and shut yourself in a room and say, well, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to rock the matrix too much. We are in the end of a World War III. I want to keep it. I want to survive a bit. So I want to, but it's really not like that. It can be for some people. But I would imagine that the people that it's like that are the, like I said before, the undecided voter, or the one that is so much still of the natural matrix, believing it to be so, that in itself is a trap. So therefore it's not going to rock the matrix in any way. But that is really, I suppose that's the idea of saying some of the stuff that I am, is to, point out the possibility to those that are undecided and who aren't totally of the matrix, but also aren't totally of the human world. Because we do have, I suppose I should put it this way, like, I have never been a human advocate. I never have. I've been antisocial. I've been a loner, and I've said this before, and I have never particularly seen human beings as anywhere near as valuable as what they are. Not because I didn't, it's like you tend to think there's so many of them, and some of them are this, some of them are that. We're some of this and some of that ourselves most of the time. When we point the finger at someone else, we've usually done the same things ourselves, We notice it more at different times, and sometimes we have good periods. You can be really negative for years and be negative towards human beings and different things for years, and then you can, like myself, then at some point, usually after a long, long time, you come to the realisation that you made a big mistake that way, that the people that you thought were a threat to you, or, whatever, for whatever reason, were not, that you're just being set up, and that you were, you should have known that you were wrong in your decision to go against them, or to try to harm them in any way, or to even, like I said, the obstructionist, the restriction, not wanting someone to be better than yourself is probably, that is a human fault that is in most of us, and it's certainly been in me too. I have to say that, especially in my earlier life, and that is a matrix implant. Sure, you still should, as a human being, know better. I should have known better. We all should. But it is still a matrix implant too. It is a matrix setup. Now, that's another question, as I said before, to talk about the matrix and say why it exists, why it continues. Is it still a spiritual domain, even though it is largely a technological construct? That's interesting. But because, you see, this is what comes to me now, is that because we are in, the final stages of a World War III, and hey, if I've got this wrong, if we're at the beginning instead of the final stages, so be it. Time is a funny thing. And maybe there is no finality to it, in the sense that maybe there is no timeline. Maybe the timeline is determined by a human being. Maybe, But the way it looks now, it certainly looks like final stages. And it certainly looks as though everything has escalated, and but that's just how I see it, because obviously your different circumstances, if you're in the thick of the matrix, and like, it depends on what area you even live. I have to say that honestly. For some people who are a little bit more, I don't even like to say in the dark, but like I was before, to where you can see things changing, but you don't associate that with the full picture of saying, yes, this is this is changing, I don't like it, but it's just an accident and maybe we can right it. Whereas if you sort of say, look, it really is a matrix, it really is a controlled total game, total video game. There's nothing random in this reality at all. The only random thing in this reality would be a human. I just threw that in and I don't know why I said it. But yes, I would, but seriously, I would think that the only random thing, the only natural thing, the only thing that operates fly by night or like on instinct and is like, I can't really describe it, but all I can say is, and I don't like to be shouting, but like I say, I was not an advocate for human beings, and that is another thing that is happening, is that humans, yes, turn against humans. That's because they don't know they're in a matrix. If they knew they were in a matrix, as I didn't, then you devalue the human being because you say there's a lot of us where we cause more problems than more good. This is really not true at all. Very few real humans actually cause deliberate harm. But if they're there under the influence of the matrix, yes. If they are possessed, yes. But because humans are not aware that they're in a matrix that controls their thinking, infiltrates their thought and therefore contributes to their actions and their vibration, which is manipulated by the matrix, if you like to look at it that way. It's tweaked by the matrix, it's played by the matrix. The matrix plays with the essential components of the human being, which is the frequency and vibration of us. It plays with me daily and usually wins. There's very few times that you can actually get the upper hand on the matrix, especially if the matrix really exposes itself. When it's there but it's not fully exposed to where you don't see it or to where you don't realise certain things. It may not even be that you realise that you're in a matrix. See, I became aware of certain things on my own through experience, realisation, but it wasn't like some great big opening up of enlightenment as that. No, nothing like that at all. It was very simple things that any fool would have realised, You just realise that people around you are negative. You realise that they're not for you, that they're destructive. It's like, having a friend and then suddenly you realise that friend is not your friend at all. Eventually they expose it to you. Eventually, and sometimes, it becomes quite clear. So you just realise that as I said, I've explained this before and I'm wasting video here. Even just to, like I say, to realise that what you thought about people was incorrect in the sense that, like I've said, if you could even realise that people around you are negative, that they don't really like you, that they're destructive for you. You could realise that. But you don't realise that it's like technology. It's hard to change. Technology is not something that is like a human, where a human oscillates almost with the frequency. Like me, like you oscillate between feeling positive or negative, between thinking positive and negative, between doing positive and negative. And, under the right environment, you have a potential to be positive. Under a negative environment, you can only be negative frequency, negative actions, negative thinking, negative towards yourself, negative towards others. Like I say, I didn't particularly have negativity towards other people in my life. Obviously on occasion I did, individual cases, but as a whole I didn't have a negative against humanity. But at the same time I didn't have a positive either. And I didn't particularly, have to be quite honest, didn't particularly worry at a personal level. Yes, if I really, obviously because I was human, if I actually saw destruction of humans, like if I actually saw it there again, if you're in the Matrix but you don't experience the Matrix firsthand, that's what we all do in this world. We separate from those that are on the other side of the world. If we hear about a disaster, we think it's terrible, but we don't bleed anywhere near or have anywhere near as much sympathy as if we saw it right in front of us. The closer it is to us, the more we believe it, the more we sympathise with it, the more we understand it, the more we have the so-called empathy, But even that, if you're using the technology, some people can get strong emotions through the technology. If they believe that what they're seeing on the technology is real, they can be manipulated through technology. In other words, if I see some tragedy, which I often do, on my computer, and I believe that is a real life incident as opposed to a movie, and I say there's no difference because we're in a matrix, as I've said many videos ago, it's all one and the same. Take it all in, but really, probably because we live in a reverse world, it's better I reverse it round. I say I'm more likely to believe the movie than the real life incident. They're both happening, they're both real, and they're both part of the matrix. But I'm not explaining this very well. But I'm not going to let my mind be taken over and act on something from the movie because I know it's played by staged actors. Whereas if I see something that I think is real, or even a documentary, I will let my mind be taken over to that and I will get emotional and I will act on it. Of course I'll get emotional while I'm watching a movie too, because that's the whole idea of a movie, is to get emotional and follow the plot and the actors and whatever. But at the end of the movie, I don't say it's real, so I'm not going to act on it. I'm just being temporarily mind controlled, temporarily taken over by the technology, by the movie. Movie is technology too. It's an artificial thing. Everything is technology. But you're aware of that. Anyway, I've gone off the track, but do you see what I'm saying? That, it's all the same, but you will act on one, but you won't act on the other. So one is more powerful in a funny kind of way. But there is more, because we live in a reverse world, you shouldn't be acting on, I personally would, I'm very reluctant to act on the documentary as opposed to the movie. Well, I'm not going to act on either, really, because, they're all part of the matrix. But I didn't put that very well. Actually, it does make it sound, doesn't it, that you don't know what to do. Because some things are actually happening and some things aren't. But even the things that are happening are part of the matrix. So, that's why I say it's a very, look, I think I have to delete this thing. See, it's a tricky thing. This is what I'm going to come back to my original kind of point, and I think this is the problem. It's a problem for me, and it's a problem for probably the lower frequency are, the more problem it's going to be, right? Because I think that the more higher frequency you get, the more you can distinguish between the reality and the non-reality. What is real, what is true, and what isn't. What is fake. But you'll be able to distinguish between the movie and the real thing. I don't know if I put that right, and I don't know if I can even explain it. And I don't know if I comprehend it myself, really, to be honest. And of course, as you can see, the Matrix totally got me, and people get me, to where I don't even have confidence now in half the stuff I'm saying. You know, in the sense that, you know, it's a hard thing to. See, this is why I say we've let it get away from us for that reason. But either way, I'll try to get back on track. The World War III scenario that is being played out right now, covertly mostly, and not so covertly if you see it, but also not so covertly for some people, but very covertly for most, I would think. This is what I think. You know, it's not played out covertly for myself personally, but, you know, unfortunately I would say, because if it's being played out covertly, I'd have to use that movie as an example. You will have what they call the cognitive dissonance. So that means that your life won't be totally chaotic and totally a nightmare. Because the Matrix, if you see it, once you see the Matrix, you're not meant to see the Matrix, you see. You're not meant to see the Matrix. You're allowed to talk about it, you know, because it's all a fairyland. It's all a fairy tale in a way, and it is fairyland. But it can also be a nightmare fairyland, and the Matrix likes to keep it as a little bit of both. It doesn't want, you know, it doesn't want you to see everything as negative. But see, that is also the trick. I've lost my train of thought and I've gone off track. You see, I was saying that the human thing is important. I did not, like I say, I use myself as an example here because it's just an example of what is happening. You know, I would think it's happening to most people. And I see it, that it is. I see it because I see their personalities and how they think. Not everyone, of course, there again, you know, it is a limited and I could be overreacting. But, like I say, we've always been separated to some extent from other human beings and our real reality. We only associate with a limited number of human beings, and we think of the world at large. You know, we're removed from it. That's what they call cognitive dissonance, which I only learnt about a few months ago. You know, you can even get positive things from negative people because, you know, when I say that, sometimes I get information from, you know, from sources that are not really there for my benefit, but they can still give you stuff that you did not know. And I was not aware of cognitive dissonance, even though obviously, you know, we all probably do it consciously or unconsciously quite a lot of the time. Most of the time it's just because we believe the false reality. You know, we believe everything that the Matrix shows, and the Matrix only shows you a little bit, so it's really like saying it doesn't matter even if what you see of the Matrix is true. You're still only seeing a piece of the puzzle. You're only seeing a piece of it. So like I've said before, if you only have a little bit of information or a little bit of the picture, that it's no use to you. And it will, you know, even if it's true, it'll probably still lead you astray because knowing a little bit of truth and you don't know the whole picture, that little bit of truth, if you run with it, you're probably running for the Matrix, you know. Because, you know, as I said before, the Matrix sees all and knows all. So it's got a huge advantage. And it's not, you know, like I say, if you're just a cog in the Matrix, whereas the Matrix is like got its own machine mind. It's got its own machine mind. I mean, like it's got its technology. So it's a machine collective mind. But it knows that humans are not a machine collective mind. It knows that. And it wants humans to help that machine collective mind. Because it likes doing that. It needs that. It likes that. Well, also it needs that, as I said before, because it needs to keep some humans working for the Matrix. Because the human has a fascinating mind for the Matrix God and its entities. Because the Matrix God entities and its minions and its followers and its members are a technological kind of race, if you want to look at it that way. They don't think the same way as a human. They like the way humans think because it's different. They don't respect the human or the mind, but they see it as still something that is interesting for them. They just use it. It's like it's like they see us as a small, valuable part of the Matrix, but only a small, valuable little gem. But they don't think that that gem is a valuable whole. They see it as something just to be incorporated into their mind technological matrix. If you look at it that way, I don't understand it, but I'm a basic person, so I'm putting it basic. It's a bit like they just use it to make the world more interesting, and also they use it that way they can keep humans working for the Matrix. As I said before, because if humans see the Matrix as if real humans, when I say real humans, I mean those that like like to think that they're in their own world still. I'm not putting this very well. But it's like if I look outside and I don't see a single tree or something, I might just start to think to myself, what's happened? You become aware then that you're in a technological matrix, you see. If it was all really stark and all concrete, 100%. Now, some people might still be fine with it, but there would be a certain amount of but when I say real humans, I mean those that really do like the natural as well. That's as basic as I can put it, and I'm not explaining it well, I know. Because there's two ways of looking even at nature. Some people, even real humans, still see nature as just something that they think is a necessary thing. They like to have it because they think that it keeps them healthy. They may not even be spiritual, but you see, even that is still something that the Matrix wants to keep those people happy, to where they're not thinking that they've went, to where, like I say, this is a World War III. And I'm not explaining it well again, as usual, but like I say, in this World War III, it's covert, because most people don't see this world as a total technological matrix. They just don't see that. They don't think it's a reality, and it doesn't look as though it's a reality. Even if I wasn't in my own personal area where like there again, that depends on, it's a bit like everything. Wherever you are will determine what you also think about the world. You have the technology, which technology can tell you anything, because it's just put onto a screen, so we all know that. Like I say, technology is like a movie. It can be constructed, and a lot of it is. That's what a matrix is. It's constructing your reality. Some people like this. I heard about this years ago, but I wondered about it at the time. What was it? A virtual reality thing. Like I think I saw it on a TV show years ago. Like I think in this show, the person in it was very tech directed, like technology to openly like technology to a great extent. I think you'd call them a tech geek or something. I'm not sure. And I avoided this show for years for this reason, but eventually got hooked by it, which shows you that the Matrix can get even people who are non-technical and don't like those types of shows or movies to watch them, and can get you addicted to them. I watched every episode many times. So this is interesting, isn't it? You see, that's what I'm saying. Anything is possible in a Matrix with their mind. Because if they make those characters still interesting somehow, or, a good script, but either way, that's not the point. This virtual reality thing, like this person was like, why would I want to go on a real camping trip and go out into nature and get all dirty and hey, I got OCD, so I should have agreed with this, and did actually, 20, 30 years ago, I'd have probably said, oh, what's the harm? Yeah, maybe it is better because maybe I might have a few problems with the real world, because I always have. See, I know I go in the opposite direction now despite my own personal phobias or, thoughts on these things, because I know they're not right, and I know that the Matrix makes for you to think that way. I might not be natural in my whole thing, but I know that it is not good to not be natural. I've always thought that, at least, even about myself, and that's probably the main difference with a lot of people. It's like saying, this is how I am, and it suits me, or even if it doesn't suit me, it's what I am, and it's a problem. But if technology could help solve that problem, then I should like technology. I say no, I should not like technology, even if it can help me with my problem. Because that is the trick of the Matrix. But either way, this person said, yeah, why would I want to go on a camping trip or go or climb around or get all dirty and messed up and go to all that bother when I can just put on this helmet and go into a virtual reality world where I can see all these same things, and it will appear to be just as real as when I'm doing it for real, and I can feel it, I can smell it, I can touch it. Why shouldn't I do that? Why shouldn't I go from this real world into an unreal virtual reality world and play that game to where I'm safe? Like I'm safe. No harm is really going to come to me. Makes sense, doesn't it? And I don't know what I'm talking about. I lost track of what my point was there. But am I making a good point here, or am I just rambling like some nut job? Because like that almost made sense when I was watching it, and it does make sense in some ways. But what we don't realise is that we're already in a virtual reality world. And so if we put on the helmet and play the video game, we're going from a virtual reality world into an even more unreal world, if you really look at it that way. Because although yes, of course, because you see, this is an artificial virtual reality world that appears to be natural. And maybe some of it still is. Maybe that is what this World War III is about. Yeah, that just comes to me now. Maybe that is what the World War III is about. Because see, if we're already in a virtual reality world, which is largely technology, and it's controlled by technology, it's run by technology, it's overseen by technology, the whole world, however you want to visualise it, and you might visualise it better than me because I certainly have difficulties, but it doesn't matter, Well, it would be nice to know. It probably does matter, but you know, that's what's hidden behind the curtain and in the dark, as I say. Now, why that is, now I wonder sometimes, and I've gone off track again, and I'm actually getting a headache. I'm giving myself a headache by making these videos. Although I did actually already have one, come to think of it, but it had gone temporarily and now it's back, and I think I'm either that or the Matrix is getting to me. But even the stress of knowing these things, I personally, myself, find it, and this is why I think most people have cognitive dissonance. But see, I didn't choose it. I would actually choose, a bit like that fella in the Matrix movie where he's like, let me go back to the Matrix, and he actually killed all his friends, you know, that he believed were true and that he believed in their ideas for years because he got sick of being, he wanted to be, he's like, hey, let me back into the Matrix, provided it can be a friendly Matrix. I get that, because that cognitive dissonance is like that. It's like where you don't want to see the ugly side. You don't want to really see the full Matrix because it is not a pretty sight. And you will be like myself to where you say, what can I do about it? I can't do anything about it. What's the point in knowing something terrible? It's a bit like knowing that a disaster is going to happen and not being able to do anything about it. You're like, let me at least live my last moments in peace and false happiness. You know, ignorance is bliss, as they say. You know, let me have that ignorant bliss state for whatever time. That's I think an attitude that a lot of people might have, and certainly one that I would. I haven't actually had a choice myself. So, but I could well understand that. You know, even a year or two ago, I'm sure if I had, you know, if I actually thought I had that choice, you know, you probably take it. Because I was already willing to take that attitude before the Matrix exposed itself. My attitude at that point was freedom at all cost, because I had got so sick of restrictive people. I thought the Matrix was just people, and it kind of is, but I thought it was a limited number. I didn't think it was a joint mind collective. Because once you get a joint mind collective that is using technology, mobile phones, etc., it's all technology, computers, you have got a collective mind technological matrix that can work against you if you are not part of that, or if you, or if you just irk, shall we say, people for being more. Well, also the thing is that if you become aware that some people are more technological or more psychologically technological, in the sense that, as we've talked about before, or I've rambled before anyway, and some agree, I know, because I did get comments going back, going off track here again, but the pathological narcissist or psychopath is a human being, but they are technological in their thinking in a way. They're not a technological being. They're not of the technological God. And I have to say, I don't understand this, so I might sound a lot more informative and a lot more profound than what I actually am, because I can't look at this and see it working. I've not seen, I see, as I said before, I see the minions of the God entity, the followers, the demigods that we idolize. It's all these things you see, but you don't actually still fully see the whole operation. You see what is going on, but you don't see how it's all worked, But you can kind of piece it together by the results of what you see. You know that if you see people with a lot of mobile phones and they're all talking on them, you say that is a joint mobile mind technological collective. You might say that is ridiculous. She's talking ridiculous. I'm just exaggerating to make the point. As I've said before, I always take it to the limit. But at the same time, I personally, in my fantasy way of looking at it, and this is just my own personal way of looking at it, I do see it as the limit. But even if you take it at a very lesser level and say, well, yes, you have a group of people using mobile phones, they are not talking to one another or using their own psychic mind to communicate, if that's possible, which obviously for most people it's not. But they're not trying to do that. They're not using anything that is human to communicate. They're using technology. They're not even using their own natural vibe or their own natural instinct, which we all do have. That's not at a high level. Even at our low level, we still can pick up on people's, like their facial expressions. We pick up a little bit on that. We don't know the whole picture from that. Sure, no, you can't read a mind based on someone's expression. But if someone's upset, some people, even the pathological narcissist and psychopath, are much better at picking up facial expression and feelings and emotions from another human than what the real humans are that aren't that. And when I say real humans, that's just to distinguish. That's just to distinguish that someone else has a different personality, that they're more extreme. That's all. So don't take it personal if you lean that way, or if you are one, or if you're not, or whatever. I have to use words to describe. I'm saying we're all still human in this group. But I'm saying that at the God level, at the matrix level, the matrix that covers the earth and those that work for that, if you want to look at it that way, that is a different category of fish, I would think. In other words, they are not, the matrix God is a technological being. It's made of a different component to a human being. It's not the same. Some of its followers may be similar or may even be human types that have chosen to follow. Because it's like you can bow down and worship anything you like. You can bow down and worship a statue. It doesn't make the statue human. It's different to a human. But, that was not a very good point, I know. But what I'm saying is that you can. We all know we can. And, I personally think, and this is going right into fantasy, into a big fairy tale for me, and it could well be a bit like a movie, and I'm sure there's probably been some made like this. And no doubt, look, I have no doubt of some of this myself because I see it, because it comes back to me, But, see, even humans feed the matrix God, in the sense that, like I say, the human thought, I had it there for a second. Sometimes you know how you get your thoughts and they make real sense and you just say, oh, that's how it is. And then it's gone because you're in a matrix. Because it's like, but yes, the humans feed the matrix God. See, that wasn't how I was supposed to put it. But we are sustenance in a way, and we do, we help to keep that system going, which most people openly agree to. Because some people actually think that it's a good thing to have all human beings connected. Technologically. They think it's an advancement. They think it's good. All I've ever said, in light of what I think a human should be and could be, but we're not, And that's why we agreed to that. That idea in itself is not necessarily a bad idea. It's just that it was something that we were meant to have naturally. See, to have it technologically is where we don't have it for ourselves. Then we have to be subservient to the Matrix and to the Matrix God. If you want to follow the fantasy that way, this is how I see my fantasy world. This is how I see my reality, and I see it, and that's why it's a World War III coming to a conclusion, because there are still human players that are not of the Matrix, that are not of that one mind, that technological, where they think it's a good idea for humans to all be connected and to be one mind and to cooperate. And then we will have a wonderful world, you see. We'll all cooperate, we'll have peace. Everything will be calm and lovely. All the sort of things that even I would think is good. This is not the case. Can never be the case. And is not the case. You know, I've got myself upset here. Yes, of course you can have peace. You know, if you're locked in a jail cell and you can't do anything and you're stuck in there and you can't get out, yes, you'll get fed your 3 meals a day through the bars. And they might give you a TV. So you can stay in your little technological controlled little prison cell. They might even give you a virtual reality one, so you think you're still living in a real world. You know, because like that fella in the TV show, he was actually more happy to put on the helmet and go into the virtual reality world. What do I want to go and hike around for and get my boots dirty? Maybe I'll fall over and hurt myself. Maybe a wild animal will attack me. You know. And hey, you might say, well, you won't smell the roses. You won't have the full vibe. You won't have the full feel of the forest. You say, oh, yeah, but they can do that too. They can throw in a few smells and things. You know, they make it real. You won't know the difference. And I wonder if that's what we're not living in. We don't know the difference. That's a terrible thing, isn't it? That's a terrible thought. I don't think that's quite totally true, but I think that is how it is for some people. And I think some people would not know the difference and would not care, especially if it meant that they could continue living on in this miserable mind control matrix. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I take my fairy tales seriously. My fairy tales are like being in a virtual reality world. That's right, where you actually feel them and you think they're real. None of it's real in the sense that it's not meant to be. That doesn't make sense either. No, it makes sense if you say, well, you're in a fairy tale, you're in a virtual reality world, you're in a horror movie, you're in you're in a fairy tale. You're Alice in Wonderland. You're at the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. You know everyone at that table is mad. They're not logical. They're not sane. They're pathological narcissists. They're pathological psychopaths. But they like that. They think it's fun. They like their Mad Hatter's Tea Party. You might even like their food and their tea. Might be better than what I make for myself. But, you know, the price of that will be that you will have to keep the company of the Mad Hatter and all the, the strange characters, strange people. See, even craziness is a matter of opinion, in a way. Because we now live in a reverse world, I say. So like I say, if the majority are more pathological, if you want to look at it that way, and the rest are only half pathological, myself probably included, I don't know, and there might be a few that are totally sane left, you know, like some people it's just not possible for them to be totally pathological, you know, even if they want to fit into this pathological world, as some of us do, you know, myself even included, but we just can't because it's just too much. Whereas pathological people don't have such a problem with that. In fact, they would probably only wake up if they actually thought that they were under threat somehow themselves, I would imagine. You know, that's how I would think about it, because they're not uncomfortable with things that make some of us humans more uncomfortable. Oh, I've gone off the track and I don't know what I'm talking about here. See, my point earlier on about the human thing, about how I personally never was a champion, shall we say, for humans. But we're in the end of a World War III, and look, I don't particularly like crocodiles. I don't particularly like sharks. I don't particularly like every animal on this planet. Erase the word planet, by the way. Sorry about that. How can it be a planet when it's a mind control matrix, you see? So that's force of habit, because that's what you're conditioned to and that's what you believe. And it's very hard to let go of that. And it's only a word anyway. You know. Okay, so it's a planet matrix if you want to look at it that way. But then you'd say, well, what's a planet? Well, then you have to look up the dictionary, and then I'm off, because maybe planet might say very specifically what a planet is. You know, I don't think that even if it's what I think a planet is, I think that that idea of it being some sort of natural revolving thing would just not be possible in a matrix. And even if it is, if it's a matrix and it's full of technology, it is just, it's something else again now, either way. Like I say, it's just not, oh, it doesn't matter, you see, it really doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter in that sense. But I hope you follow what I'm saying, and I'm not sure if I... But either way, like I say, if I thought that the last crocodile was going to be, you know, made extinct, or the crocodile race was going to be made extinct, or the crocodile life beings were going to be made extinct, or the, you know, regardless of what I think about them at a personal level, regardless of that. But if it's your own kind, it kind of makes sense too. But what I'm trying to say is that, you know, it puts it in a different light. I don't like to see anything go extinct, even things that I don't particularly personally like, you know, because obviously even if you like life forces and you like animals or whatever, you know, you're not going to, you know, you could still say, well, it's just another animal that looks different and that does what it does because that is its habitat, its nature. You know what I'm saying, but they're still like unique species, and all I'm saying is that I don't, you know, like, you know, and also if you see something to where, I suppose, to where you see it as, you know, somehow, you know, like I've always went for the underdog. So if you see a situation taking place, or even a battle, where the odds against a particular species are so much against them that they have no hope of actually surviving, you do tend to want to champion that cause. And if it's your own kind, that's what you should have been doing all along, you know. But instead, in this matrix, because it is a mind control matrix, because it is a matrix of chaos and confusion and not of peace, and because so much negativity is presented by the matrix, it is very easy to see even real, genuine humans going against other real, genuine humans in a collective kind of general way. In other words, to say, oh, you know, like how many times do I now hear people saying, oh, that's what humans are, gee, they've really gone, they're really bad. They're actually talking about themselves and their own kind as bad because they might see something from the matrix that shows that a human has been destructive to a life force or to something, you know what I'm saying? And so then you say, oh, well, why should I care about humans going extinct? Why would I care if there's less of them? Because they wipe things out. So if they wipe themselves out, who cares? This is the matrix. This is the deception of the matrix. And it is very hard to see this and to, no, but not so much even hard to see it, but hard to comprehend it, because it is all, it's everything. It's not that you can't see some things. It's what I find the most difficult is that it is everything. If it was just a few things, it becomes clear, and you say, oh yeah, well, we could perhaps write that, or maybe there's this, but also it is knowing. You have to keep it simple. That's the only way that I have been able to deal with it, accept it even, and to keep it sane in an insane world, if you want to look at it that way. But that is because you keep it to where you keep on track, which is something I don't do. But you know, but I still see it all the time, and it really is a question of really just being able to, and it's not easy. It's not easy. In fact, it's easier for someone like myself even, because if the matrix hits you over the head and comes smack in your face, you can't miss it. It doesn't make me, as I said before, but I don't have high IQ or even a high spiritual level. You know, it's like if you're in a World War III and the World War III is outside your door and it hits you in the face, you can't miss it. You don't have to be. But for most people, it's not like that. It's played in other areas. It's away from them, or it's covert, to where it's around them, but they don't see it because it's not overt. It's not put in their face, because they have not, once again I have to say that wake up thing, which I don't like doing, but it's just to where they have not seen, or even if they don't mind certain things about the matrix. Or maybe, I have to finish up here, or maybe, and this is probably getting a bit closer to what might actually happen in this fairy tale, maybe at this particular period of time, even though there is no real time, but maybe because we are in a closing time, maybe, I'm only guessing this as part of the fairy tale, maybe the truth has to be put out there. The truth is out there. I think that's from the TV show, The X-Files, I think. The truth is out there. Maybe because we are, this come to me just now, maybe because we are in the end of the World War III and the final scenario being played out. As many people do think, and I think it too now, only on what I see. Otherwise I would have said, hey, there can never be an end. Because actually, theoretically speaking, there can't be an end to the world. Not if it's a proper world. I wouldn't think. But there again, I don't know because I don't understand these things. I don't have the expertise, I don't have the mind for that. And so disregard that. But either way, I think that because it is the closing of the final World War III scenario, a kind of battle between technology, the matrix, the technological god, this whole thing against a battle against the waking up or the awakening, if you like, or the awareness of a limited number of human beings that operate the matrix, because the humans are the engine of the matrix. The technological kind of matrix mind, collective mind that actually runs the matrix, feeds off the humans because they have a different way of thinking. They are feeding that machine mind. They shouldn't be, I don't think. They should be feeding, but of course they're in a matrix, and because the matrix is now in total full function, whereas humans, on the other hand, are now, like myself, disorientated, confused, separated from other human beings that are running, that even though they're working the matrix, we're the machine of the matrix, we're the machine mind of the matrix. That was not how I meant to put it. Yeah, we are the machine mind of the matrix, but we're not meant to be the machine mind of the matrix. We're meant to be our own natural, authentic mind, individual, but naturally combining with other human beings, if we choose to create a world that is a good world for us to live in. Instead, we are the machine mind of the matrix, creating a world that we wouldn't probably want in a million years. At least that's how I see it anyway. But, if you do like a machine world, if you do like a matrix, and you consciously say, I like that, I don't mind being part of it, then you're in the right world. In fact, they don't even have to take you over or to hassle you or to battle it out with you, because you're already in agreement. And I say, okay, goodbye, good luck, hope you enjoy your world. But the rest of us, I don't know what the numbers are, like, we don't want it. We don't like it. We didn't agree to it. But they're hassling you for it. They're like, look, in our world, you can't be a stumbling block. You can't be the cog that is trying to malfunction our matrix. We are all powerful. We are most of the world. We are most of your world, whether you think it's a matrix or real or not, or natural or whatever. We are the world. You are not. You are a necessary cog for as long as it suits us, But more importantly, maybe we just can't get rid of you. Maybe we're not allowed to get rid of you. I don't know. Maybe this is just another fairy tale way of looking at it when we're in this fairyland, nightmare, fantasy, dream world, as some have said. It's a dream, but it feels very real. So, I take it to be real either way, but obviously it's not real in the sense that, if you don't know what you're living, like if I don't know what I'm in, and I don't, if I don't understand how I'm really meant to be, if I don't understand my full potential, and I don't, I just acknowledge these things. But I really don't know how far you really can go in this reality if you're at full steam, at full potential, at the highest frequency, at the highest level you spoke. I don't know. I presume it would be pretty high. I presume it would be totally different to the way we live now. But more importantly, we would have control over our reality instead of the opposite, to where you have none and the matrix is what controls you. Like I say, but if you agree to that, if you like that, whether you're misguided or whether you know that it's a good idea. Of course, obviously, I think it's misguided. Why wouldn't I? If you come from my angle where you think that we're at the lowest, but they're at the highest, but I still think that what I see of their world is a negative. But either way, I wouldn't care. See, this is the difference between me and some people. I wouldn't care. I personally believe that the highest technological world cannot compare to the highest human world when they're at their highest level. We are at our lowest level because we are in a technological matrix world. I'm trying to put this as best as I can, but I personally, and this is probably why I don't fit into the matrix real well, and especially now that I've seen the matrix. If I hadn't seen it, I would have probably halfway went with it. And also seeing too much power, and also realising that in order to live in a matrix world, because I have been a loner, and because I have separated a fair bit from human beings, rightly or wrongly, mainly wrongly, because the numbers are there's not as many suitable human beings as what I thought. But either way, that is not a matrix prerequisite, shall we say. To be in a matrix, you must be part of the collective, because a matrix is a collective. It is not an individual thing. It might tell you that you can be your true self. It might tell you can be an individual, but it's not about that. It is about a mind collective. You must agree to the matrix. I haven't explained this very well. I haven't put it even at a physical level very well. But, I think that, personally, that most of the matrix is a game-playing technique to convince you of that. I don't think that it is actually a reality, even for those who are of the collective even. I don't think that. I actually think that it is just a mind game to get you to play in a world that you wouldn't have a bar of if you knew what it really was. That's what I really think myself. It's like, it's like saying, hey, come into our horror movie, come into our nightmare world. Like, if you consciously knew that, would you do it? Maybe there might be a small percentage that would, but the vast numbers that are in it, I find that's why I think that it is, the game is played on all, I would think, because I can't actually, personally, like I say, I think there'll always be a number that will actually consciously accept a nightmare and enjoy it. But don't forget, it's a 24/7 nightmare. It's not. It's like my own life. It's not going to be just to where you can go into the nightmare and then go into a different scene, shall we say. But either way, I've lost track of it here. But if you think of it as a virtual reality type thing, I would imagine that the trick is kind of like that fella wanting to put on the virtual reality headgear, mask, the thing you put on to go into that virtual reality world, thinking that it's real, feeling that it's real. but not encountering any danger. It seems like a safe option. I think it's kind of like that the trick of being in a matrix is that you are doing that, but you're not going anywhere. You're trapped. It's a mind trap because, when you put that thing on, you feel that you are climbing mountains. You feel that you are doing all fantastic things. You feel that you are actually in nature and doing all these, and you actually feel like you think you're doing it. But in reality, you're just in your living room with a headgear on, under the control of the virtual reality device or the matrix. Did that make sense? So you're not master of your own domain. You're not master of the so-called universe or whatever it is. You might feel you are because in that virtual reality world, you are confined. You can't move. You don't even have to move. You could be sitting on a seat. You could be strapped to a seat, literally. A horror movie strapped to a seat, but with that virtual reality mask on to where you think that you're doing all these fantastic things, but you're actually doing nothing. You're not moving. You're trapped. But you don't know you're trapped because you're actually quite happy. You might even be happy. I think I've stretched this fantasy far too far, personally, and I think that, there are some people that say, hey, I'm fine with that. What's the difference if I think I'm in reality when I'm not, as to being in reality? Well, that's another question. I can't answer that. All I can say is I stick to what I say. I don't care. I don't care. This is my own personal view, so laugh at it and don't even listen. Because it is stupid in a way. Some people say it's stupid. And it may well be stupid, but call me stupid because it doesn't matter whether you're stupid or not. It's what you think and what you want. All I'm doing is putting my little opinion here and thinking I'm important by doing it. And I don't know why I'm doing it because there's no point to it really. It doesn't matter what I think, it's what each person thinks. But I'm just doing it because I make the video, and it is part because some people don't agree with the world that it is not what they think. And a lot of people are not comfortable with that, or at least when I say a lot of people, maybe the few people that listen to these videos are not happy with the world for that reason. Because it's one thing if you know you're in a matrix, it's one thing if you know you put the thing on, it's one thing if you know you're trapped. But it's no good being trapped after you are trapped, is what I'm trying to say. It's no good like me waking up when I'm trapped. Of course, I was waking up and then I got trapped. That's because the world has gone so far down the technology, because this is what I think, but maybe it's all meant to be. I don't know. See, it's an end scenario if you want to take it that way. Look, I'm just going with my own fairy tale here. Like I say, I don't know. Like I was just going to say that I just add this that maybe I won't add it because I've rambled on for too long. And because I sidetracked myself, I was going to finish up and now I don't know what I was just going to say next. So this is it. No, I was just going to say, look, I'll just reiterate what I ramble and say over and over again. And this is like saying that, look, you probably, some people, those that maybe don't think the same way, they're going to want some sort of argument that means that what I'm saying is true, that you shouldn't be of the matrix, you shouldn't be a joint collective mind, or part of a technological joint mind system. Everyone shouldn't be connected. You know how we have this thing now where, we're all connected, we want to all be connected. Now I'm saying, we need to disconnect. And you'd say, well, what is she talking about? She doesn't know what she's talking about. And it's true, because then I'll say, but as human beings, we are all connected, naturally. But see, this is what I'm trying to say. I think that. And that is part of the core basis of what I think now is a human being. I proved it enough to myself and I see it in the reality, but still each person has to find it for themselves and prove it to themselves. But either way, I go out on a limb here, which I think I said in the previous video, which I deleted accidentally. When it means going out on a limb, it just means you're taking it to an extreme. And you know that when you take something to the extreme, that it's reasonable for most people to probably not agree with it, because I'm not expecting you to, and I don't care. I don't want you to necessarily, because, well, no, I would want you to, because I do think that it is the best thing, but at the same time I can see how it's not totally logical, and I'm all about logic, trying to keep a bit of sanity, a bit of what I call what you see, and a bit of practicality. But look, we live in a matrix, so, you have to... But all I'm trying to say is this is just my own personal thing, and you can turn off now because it's not about what's actually real. I'm just saying that even if everything that I say is not correct, right? In other words, even if I'm not a spiritual human being, I know I'm a human being. I'm a natural being, okay? That's a human being, is a natural being. It's not a technical being, okay? That's just putting it simply. We know the difference between technology and an organic life form, or whatever. We know that. We know there's a difference between a piece of steel and a worm wriggling around on the ground. But, if we saw a technologically advanced machine next to that worm, we'd say, wow, that's a god. That worm may as well tread on it. It's worthless by comparison. I say, no. The worm is still more valuable than the most advanced technological mind machine that you could ever make or invent, or has already been there, or whatever it does. I don't care if it rules the universe, if there is one, which maybe not. Not going to say, because I could change my mind on some of those things, but I will not change my mind on that core thing. And it doesn't matter to me. Like I say, it doesn't matter to me if the technology, which it is already much more advanced than the human, because it's took the basics. It takes every little tidbit from the human, the best of the human, even things that humans where we're not being particularly brilliant. Like I might just say something that might tickle the technology's fancy, and it will then use that for something better. But it can't use nothing without getting that from the human, even though the human might not put it as well, do it as well. You see what I'm saying? But we are still feeding that technological machine. Without us, it does not exist, or cannot exist, or cannot keep going. But so it's a choice whether we feed it. But unfortunately, that's my whole thing, is that, hey, I'm not given a choice. I feed it. I'm feeding it now. But that's why I don't, like, because the technology is more advanced than my mobile phone. Like I've said before, it's no point in me throwing that away to stop it feeding off me. No, but getting information off me, getting thoughts, getting interesting ideas, even little tidbits. I mean, they already know about the matrix, so it's not like anything I say is going to that, but they don't feed off this sort of stuff that I'm doing here. The matrix doesn't feed off me doing profound videos saying, oh, our thought creates reality and all this sort of stuff, which probably might sound profound to some other people. They don't feed off that. They're not interested. They laugh at me doing that. They're like, we already know that. That's why you're here. We just don't want anyone else, too many others to know it, because they might just have a little bit more power than you. They might just say, hey, maybe I don't need the technological matrix. Maybe, but that's taking it to an extreme too. But what I was going to say, that in my reality, forget the fantasy. For me personally, I have always, and maybe this is why I'm not a popular of the matrix, should we say, because I personally think that regardless of how advanced the technology is, how much genius level the matrix God even is, how much I might admire some of the things. I don't, but if I did, because I certainly admire the matrix God's idols, the icons and the entertainers of this world, the actors of this world that prance around on this so-called world stage. I certainly have admired and seen them as gods, demigods they are, and I've seen them and watched them. You give them your time, your energy, your admiration. It's the same thing. You admire something more than yourself. You've made that thing a god. You've made that person a god. And you've made yourself less, even though you don't know it. And the reason you do it is because you secretly are of the matrix. You don't think that yourself is as good. You buy into that. You don't accept yourself as you are. You play with the matrix. You compare with the matrix. But either way, I've gone off the track again. The point is that what I was going to say was that regardless of all that, even when I look at the demigods, and I think they are better than me, I actually do. I look at them and say, wow. And I listen to them and I go, wow. Sometimes I listen to them and say, wow, where did you get that from? That sounds familiar. I think maybe some other person said, but still as a collective and as a composite, because the matrix gods, demigods, are composites of humans, if you want to look at it that way. Very hard to explain that. What I'm saying is they are given their scripts. They are given the best of the things from the humans. Like humans that are not of the matrix. In other words, like I said before, it could just be, they might see a human, wearing a dress that has some pretty flowers on. They might say, oh, that human has good taste. I'm going to take that dress and give it to my demigod. You'll see it on your celebrity the next day. And then you'll say, wow, that celebrity's got good taste. Wow, that celebrity looks fantastic. You won't look at the person on the street that's wearing it because they won't be the composite. They won't have the whole thing going. They might just have, like if I had a really nice blouse instead of this thing, like a really nice thing on. But the rest of me, not so great because, I've been worn down by the matrix and not really myself. Not allowed to be, and maybe not caring because you get fed up, and maybe, your environment, all these sorts of things. But either way, but the matrix demigod, they'll have the whole thing. So they'll get the best of everything. They'll take the composites of all the humans and put it to their demigod. This is how I look at it. It could be true. It may not be as true as what I think, but I think it's true. But it's how I see it anyway, because I do see that they take the best of, and that's why we like them, because they seem to project the best of us. They don't come across as manufactured, even though they are. And even if they are, we still like them because we say, well, yeah, sure, they have this and that done to them and this and that, but hey, but they're still human. They've been technologically enhanced in every way. They're still human. Yeah, they're dressed up. and they've had this and that done to their bodies, and they're covered in makeup and all this sort of stuff. But hey, but they're still human. They're just a much nicer version of us, and that's why we like them. We don't actually think that even their humanness is contrived, that it's taken by the Matrix and given to them, And we don't think, that person stole the lady's dress down the street to wear, or the lady's idea, or the lady's thought to make them look better. We don't think that. We think they're just artificial actors, but glamorous, pretty, cute, all the things that we like. We think we like, or we're used to anyway, and we've certainly liked more of it. I know I have. And we think, oh, why shouldn't I worship them? Yeah, they are a little bit more interesting, a little bit more superior, but what I'm saying is we never ever stop and say, hey, that it's not just superficially contrived, the whole thing is not real. Just like when you're watching the actors in the movie, none of it's real. You might hear those actors talking about the movie after they've made it and saying, oh, yes, I relate to that part. Oh, I picked this movie. Oh, I understand the character. Oh, I agree with this. I agree with the ideas. It's just not so. It is all of the Matrix. But we believe it because it's nice. Because we want to believe it mainly. The cognitive dissonance. We want to believe it because otherwise we'd have to say, well, what are we really doing? What is going on? Why do we want to be in such a fake world? Like a little bit of fake, sure, we can take that. We like that. I like a bit of glamour. If I don't have it myself, I'm like, hey, I like to look at it on someone else. But I don't want to think the whole thing is 100% fake. But maybe some people do, I've went on about the life doll thing, I think, before, but I think I'll go off that. Where some people are quite happy to have a living doll. Life-size doll. Life-size Lulu doll. I'm pretty sure that I would have went for that a few years ago. Because you see, if you become very a loner and you get, like a lot of people, get disgusted with other people because if they have a few bad relationships and if everyone is messed up, you don't blame yourself, you blame the other person always. That is true. And actually it is true sometimes that the other person may be more messed up than you. Depending on how your psychopathy, shall we say, depending on that. But, once again, I go into this as though I know all these things about all this, and I kind of do, but it is a difficult thing to fully grasp, to deal with. It's difficult to realise that you're dealing with real people. You're not dealing totally with the Matrix, but you're still dealing with real people. But if you're dealing with real people who are of the Matrix, you are dealing with technology, and it's it is unnatural, it is difficult, it is unbelievable, but mostly it's unbelievably hard. Not just to comprehend, but to actually deal with. To have to accept, and then to try to, well, particularly if you're foolish enough, as I have been, foolish enough to think that you can make it somehow sane. But even that, like I don't try to make things sane necessarily to say, oh, look, oh, yes, I think the world should be this. The world should be at peace. I should try to... Of course, you can't. It's absolutely ridiculous that one person could. You can't even do it. I can't do it on a one-on-one. Most people can't Most people cannot be a human being that has been sidetracked on a one-on-one, assuming that you're not the one that's sidetracked. This is right, it's all opinion. We all think we're sane and everyone else is crazy, and vice versa. Of course there is a truth. There's a truth somewhere with everything. But, I try to see both sides of the argument, as you can see, and if you do that, you end up in the argument and you end up as much working for the argument as against it, and you end up getting nowhere. I was told many, many, many years ago, he who sees both sides sees nothing. Well, actually, you don't see nothing, but you won't actually be able to make a decision. You will be stuck in Neverland, which is, like I used to be. It's like saying, if you see both sides when two people are fighting, you can't, and we're in the end of World War III now, so it's not possible to do that. I've always been a fence sitter because I thought, hey, that's not only the safest place to be, but it made sense to me because I always saw both sides of the fence, both sides of the argument. So I didn't like to usually jump down. I try to jump on both sides and then hop back on the fence. But see, because of the situation we're in now, the Matrix is saying you cannot sit on that fence. They're like saying we're gonna blow you to bits if you sit on that fence. So you better jump on one side or the other. You see, that's how it is for myself personally. Because I don't like to take sides, because I think there's always merit in two sides of an argument, and whatever is, even like I say, even when we're talking about, like I say, psychopaths and narcissists, whatever, they're not worse or better than anyone else. They might think certain things and you might think certain things, but they are what they are because of the Matrix. This is what I say. Everything is, I put most of the onus on the Matrix, if that's the right word. Probably got the wrong word. I put most of it on the Matrix. Yes, of course, we're supposed to rise a little bit above the Matrix most of the time. But if you don't know you're in a Matrix, you don't know that you are limited and that you are more special than the Matrix, it's natural that the Matrix is going to get you. This is what happens to all of us. It happened to me all my life, and it's still happening to me even now that I'm aware of it, because then the Matrix knows you're aware, so it's going to, then it's like, hey, we don't have to play the games quite so secretly anymore. We can, and in fact, because we're in the end of a World War III scenario, and because the collective, in other words, the vast majority of people are of the Matrix, work for the Matrix, worship the Matrix in a way, they can openly show themselves to you. Whereas in the past, it was like a secretive game because there were not so many of the Matrix. So therefore, the Matrix had to be more covert. It's just like anything else. It's like, it's just logical, isn't it? That if, that if you know that there's 50-50 in a sport, you know that you have to play a lot more by the rules. You can't do, I'm not explaining this very well, but if you know that we'll put it this way, if you know that the team you're playing your video game, which is the world, or even a sport, you have 13 players. 12 of those players are all the one side, and there's only one, the 13th player is playing 12 players, because the scenario has changed, because they've changed the rules, because people have changed teams, if you want to look at it that way. It's like you've got two teams. Normally you have 13 on each side, but they've changed side. Most of the players that were playing for my team, say, have decided to play for the other team. So in the end, you're just left playing on your own. Kind of like that, I suppose you'd look at it that way. So therefore, they can play dirty. They can play it any way they want. They no longer have to play by the rules because you're outnumbered. And because they know that you know you're outnumbered, and because they know that it's a matrix, this is the scenario. Figure it out yourself. If this could happen in the world, and probably already has if you buy into the World War III scenario. Because more will be exposed then. Because if you're allowed to play dirty, and if you know you've got most of the world on your side, you don't have to play games anymore. You can say, I don't even care if you see the video game because you're outnumbered, you see. It's like we can play it now any way we want. In fact, if they're even playing to any rules at all, and they still are, in the video game that I see played, there's still some rules being applied. So this means that you're not the last man standing, you see. Whereas otherwise my logical kind of mind, and I do still have some logic, even though I'm in a crazy matrix, tells me that I'm not the last man standing. If I was playing in the video game and I'm playing in a competition, shall we say, and it's to the death if you want to look at it that way because it's the final round, I'm not the last man standing if the video game is still being played dirty, but still a little covertly. In other words, it's not like, because otherwise it'd be just like we don't have to play anymore. We can just all, be a bit like if you've got a football game and I'm the 13th player and the 12 have decided to not be, of the team. They've went to the other side. I'm not putting this right, especially as a sporting one. They would just all fall on top of me and I'm suppressed and finished. Suppressed at the most, at the least. And they could probably, actually, injure you very badly or take you right or out if they wanted to. And if they sort of say to themselves, hey, we can play it any way we like now, there's no rules, let's throw all the rules out the book because we want to win the game, but we don't have to play it by the rules anymore because we've got the numbers, you see. Whereas when it was an even playing field, I had to play by the rules. Because the Matrix doesn't play by human rules. The Matrix plays by its own rules. It's a game where humans play by human rules, but the Matrix plays by its own. Because the Matrix God is different. Because if you're talking about a technological God, it doesn't think the same way as a human being. So it doesn't feel obliged, like in the last video I said they're justified and they're ancient. They don't feel that, like if you're a different, a lion does not feel that it has to play by the same rules as the deer. It's a different species. It says, hey, I'm a lion, I play by lion rules. That little deer, it plays by its own rules. It's not a predator, so it doesn't, I'm just using this as an example, that they have a different mindset. For the lion, a certain mindset is necessary for its survival. For the deer, another mindset is necessary for its survival. All depends on what you are and what, that's being fair, looking at it, like I say, on the fence like I tend. But, I see the human as the deer in that situation because if you, I'm not making any sense. I have to fold this video. Lost the whole thing. But either way, like I say, just finishing up here. Personally, and like I say, I'll go out on this one and, take it to the extreme, and it probably wouldn't seem that it's not actually logical in a way, but I don't care if it's logical or not because I still think it's correct. This is just for me personally. So I don't expect necessarily everyone to, to think the same way about it. But for me, even if I was, did not think that I was a spiritual being, or did not think that human beings were meant to be spiritual beings who were meant to be at a much higher level, and I didn't think that our thought created reality, and I didn't think we had any power on this earth. I thought that I thought exactly like I thought before I saw the Matrix, or before the Matrix turned dark, or before the Matrix brought its hurricane in, or before I started to say, hey, look, this world is a bit technologically going too far. Perhaps it's not that healthy. Perhaps it's not this or that. Before I thought that, before I saw that, when I thought the world was reasonably all natural, that only human beings buggered everything up, that only human beings created destruction, that only human beings were negative, or certain numbers of them were, that human beings were the same species, but they had different types, and that is still true. But obviously I say now we live in a matrix that is dominated by a different thing altogether as well. That's just taking it to a different, that's just taking it more like to a level to where you say, oh, well, look, I'm a human being, but there could be a God, or there could be this or that. It's where but I'm saying that, okay, so I'm a human being, there is nothing else, I'm just here, doesn't matter how I got here. Probably an accident of nature or whatever. Who knows about nature, why nature, don't care, doesn't matter. I'm here. I just evolved somehow to this point. I'm a natural kind of being. Everything else appears to be relatively natural. Forget the technology even. But what I'm saying is that, no, I've gone off track here and not made any sense. But what I'm saying is that, if then... if I accepted that I was just a very limited human being, and that what I am now, what I now say is very limited and suppressed or whatever, if this was the highest that I could be as a human being, if I'm meant to be this, mind-controlled, or just, even if I'm just controlled by other human beings that have more power and more money, or more this or more that, and more, because we live in a matrix, whichever way you look. But whichever way you look at it, even if I just believed that I was at the best that I could be at, even though I never thought that anyway, I always thought I should have been a bit better, but I certainly didn't think that that at a spiritual level that there was anything. How I sometimes say now that all our abilities are probably suppressed as well, that most of what was meant to be working, our body is at the lowest level, as well as our mind and everything. But even if I was like, oh, I could just be a little bit better at the most, and I can only be a natural little human being in a big world, in a vast universe, all that sort of stuff. And then I was confronted with the reality that some sort of technological being or technology can be much more advanced, and that a human can never advance to any of those levels, like the technology or a technological being. Myself personally, I would say that and that other humans should still stay what they are, even if they are just limited, pathetical human beings by comparison with what technology can achieve. Even if, as a human being, I have, say, a limited lifespan, and the technology can say, well, look, we can use technology to advance and extend our life. A machine can last longer than the human parts, that type of thing. which we kind of understand. I can basically get that myself. A bit like some people do replace parts of their body. Some of them replace it with natural. And I think the reason they do that is because they're aware that what is natural is better, but that's another argument, another scenario, whatever. But like if you could replace something in a mechanical way to replace a diseased or dead human part that has deteriorated and not helping you anymore. Most people would say, well, why would she choose to die and stay a normal, natural, limited human being by comparison? Whether it be enhancing, getting, like downloading more information from a computer into your mind and becoming part of that, and the same with your body. Now, obviously, I don't believe all these things. Obviously, I do think that everything in the human is compromised. I've said this before. So it is hard for me to say, well, look, yes, even if we're meant to be full of disease, if we're meant to be sick, if we're meant to be limited in every way, which is how we almost are now, that I still choose to stay a natural human being. That might not make sense to a lot of people, and, at a superficial kind of level it probably doesn't. And also, even if, just finishing up here, even if, what if, like I've said before, what was once possible to where the body, because look, realistically speaking, and I've experienced this myself, because, I'm at my worst right now at a physical, internal level, right? Inside the body is not good, and the matrix has brought everything down. And when I say the matrix, that means the world around you. Because if it doesn't matter whether you want to take it to where you say it's deliberate or accidental, or whether it's just happened because we've manufactured things more, because our food is not as fresh, or this or that, or because there's pollution in the air. Obviously I don't believe it. I don't believe that it's all that simple and that it's just those few things. Obviously not myself, because I live in the real fantasy world. And also, and so I believe the compromising is much more extensive than that. But even if it was at that simple level, which I would have thought maybe to some extent years ago, I would have,